The first time my wife called me unstable, it wasn't in private. It was at a dinner party in front of 12 people while she was crying. The room went quiet in that slow, suffocating way where no one wants to make eye contact. Claire's hand was trembling. My friends, our friends, were staring at me like I just confessed to something unforgivable. "I don't feel safe when he talks about money anymore," she whispered. Money. That word landed like a verdict. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This conversation had started long before I walked into that house. If you think betrayal starts with shouting, you've never watched someone quietly rewrite your reality. Follow this page, because what happened next nearly cost me my children. I didn't raise my voice that night. That's the part that still unsettles me. We were at Mark and Jenna's house. Soft jazz playing through hidden ceiling speakers, candles burning on the kitchen island, red wine breathing in crystal glasses. It was one of those comfortable suburban evenings where everyone pretends life is stable. Claire had been quiet most of the night. Too quiet. When Mark asked how the construction expansion was going, I answered honestly. Cash flows tight this quarter. A few unexpected withdrawals. I wasn't accusing anyone. I was thinking out loud. Claire's fork stopped midair. She didn't look at me. She looked at Jenna. Then she exhaled, slow, shaky. "Ethan's been under a lot of pressure lately," she said softly. "He gets fixated." Fixated. It was such a small word. Harmless on the surface. But suddenly the room shifted. Jenna's smile thinned. Mark cleared his throat. "I just don't feel safe when conversations turn into interrogations," Claire added, her voice cracking at the edges, especially in front of the kids. That was new. We had never argued in front of Lily and Noah. I blinked. "Claire, I wasn't interrogating." She flinched, physically flinched. And that tiny movement, that reflex, did more damage than any accusation could have. Mark leaned forward. "Hey man, maybe let's not do this here." "Do what?" The narrative was forming in real time, and I wasn't holding the pen. Claire's hand found her wine glass, but she didn't drink. She let it tremble just enough to be noticed. "I'm just trying to keep things calm at home," she whispered. At home, as if I were the storm. I looked around the room and realized something chilling. This wasn't spontaneous. Seeds had already been planted, and I had just walked into a harvest I didn't know had been growing. 3 months earlier, the number didn't look dramatic. $8,742.16. It sat in the middle of a vendor report like a typo, small enough to ignore, big enough to itch at the back of my mind. I noticed it on a Tuesday night, long after Lily and Noah had gone to bed. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint clicking of Claire's keyboard upstairs. I called up to her. "Hey, did we switch suppliers for the Wilson project?" She came down barefoot, wrapped in that oversized gray cardigan she wore when she wanted to look soft. "No, why?" I turned the laptop toward her. "There's a transfer to something called Riverside Holdings, LLC. I don't recognize it." She didn't even lean in. "That's probably the staging deposit for the spec house," she said smoothly. "You told me to handle some vendor prepayments, remember?" I tried to remember. I had told her she could manage household transfers to simplify things. She'd insisted on helping, said it made her feel involved in the business. Supportive. "Oh," I said. "Right? Maybe." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Ethan, you've been so tense lately. Are you sleeping?" The question disarmed me. "I'm fine," I muttered. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. "I just don't want money stress turning you into someone you're not." "Someone I'm not." It sounded concerned, loving. By the time she kissed my cheek and went back upstairs, I felt embarrassed for even bringing it up. The next morning, she transferred $2,000 into our joint personal account and texted me, "See? Everything balances." For a week, I convinced myself I'd imagined the unease. Then another transfer appeared, $5,320.44. Same LLC. And this time, she didn't mention it first. The second transfer didn't spark an argument. It sparked a shift. Claire didn't deny it this time. She sighed, not defensive, not angry, just tired. "Ethan, we talked about this. I'm managing liquidity between accounts. It's temporary. Liquidity." She'd started using business language with a kind of gentle authority, like she'd been studying me. I wanted to push further, but Lily was at the kitchen table working on a school project about ecosystems. Noah was building a crooked Lego tower beside her. The house smelled like tomato soup and toasted bread. It felt wrong to disrupt something so ordinary. "I'm not accusing you," I said carefully. She gave me a small, wounded look. "It feels like you are." That night, she didn't argue. She didn't cry. She posted an Instagram story. "Marriage means supporting each other through stress. Sometimes love means absorbing someone else's storms." I didn't think much of it until Saturday at Lily's soccer game. One of the dads, Brian, clapped me on the shoulder. "Heard work's been rough. Hang in there, man." I frowned. "Yeah, normal growing pains." He nodded slowly. "Claire just mentioned you've been overwhelmed. Money stuff can change people." Change people. The phrase landed heavier than it should have. Later that week, Claire suggested something new. "Maybe you should step back from the finances for a bit," she said gently while folding laundry. "Let Daniel handle more oversight. You've been obsessing." Obsessing. There it was again, a subtle reframing. I wasn't being careful. I was being unstable. That night, after everyone was asleep, I sat alone in the dim light of my office and opened the statements again. That's when I noticed something I'd missed before. The transfers weren't random. They were recurring. Same date each month. Same amount range. And this time, attached to the LLC payment, was a memo code. Unit for B. I had no idea what Unit 4B was. But I was starting to understand something else. This wasn't disorganization. It was design. I didn't confront her. That's what she would have expected. Instead, I Googled Riverside Holdings LLC. It led nowhere at first, just a registered agent in Portland and a mailing address that belonged to a co-working space downtown. Nothing incriminating, nothing obvious, clean, too clean. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I left work early without telling Claire. Downtown Portland was gray that afternoon, the sky hanging low like wet concrete. Traffic lights reflected off the pavement. I drove past the co-working address and kept going slowly, scanning nearby residential buildings. That's when I saw it. Claire's car, parked neatly along the curb in front of a newly renovated brick apartment building. 4 stories. Polished black doors, frosted glass entry panel. I told myself it could be anything. A meeting, a collaboration, a friend. But my hands were shaking as I crossed the street. Inside, the lobby smelled like fresh paint and lemon cleaner. Minimalist decor, a digital directory mounted beside the elevator. I scanned the names. No Caldwell, but there it was. C. Bennett. Unit 4, B. Claire's maiden name. My chest tightened. The elevator doors opened behind me, and a concierge stepped out, mid-conversation on his phone. He glanced at me and smiled politely. "Can I help you?" I forced a neutral tone. "Just checking something." Is Unit 4B available? He shook his head. No, sir. Been leased since February. February, the month the transfers began. To Ms. Bennett? He added casually. I swallowed. Does she live alone? He hesitated, professionalism flickering across his face. I can't disclose tenant details, of course. I nodded, walked out, and sat in my truck with both hands gripping the steering wheel. February. That was when Claire told me she wanted to reinvent her brand. That was when she started staying late for content meetings. That was when the word liquidity entered our marriage. I wasn't angry yet. I was disoriented. Because if she had another apartment, then what exactly was happening in mine? Part 5, the double life. I didn't drive home right away. I sat in that truck until the sky turned from gray to ink blue, watching the lights flicker on in the windows of Unit 4B. At 6:12 p.m., the curtains moved. At 6:19, Claire walked across the living room. Not rushed, not hiding, comfortable. She was wearing the black silk blouse I bought her last Christmas, the one she said was too much for school pickup. She poured a glass of wine. Then someone else stepped into frame. A man. Tall, casual, familiar in the way strangers aren't. He leaned in like he belonged there. I didn't stay to watch more. I drove home on autopilot, my mind strangely calm. The betrayal wasn't loud. It wasn't cinematic. It felt administrative, like discovering a second set of books. When I walked into our house, Lily was doing homework at the kitchen counter. Dad, you're early, she smiled. Claire wasn't home yet. She had a meeting, Lily added quickly, eyes dropping back to her notebook. Scripted. At 8:47 p.m., Claire walked through the door carrying a reusable grocery bag. Traffic was insane, she said lightly. You wouldn't believe downtown today. Downtown. I watched her unpack organic pasta, fresh basil, imported olive oil, small luxuries. Ethan, she said gently, why are you looking at me like that? I almost asked her. Almost. Instead, I said, how's the brand reinvention going? She brightened instantly. Actually amazing. I might even rent a small studio space to separate work from home. Keep things professional. A studio. Unit 4B. I nodded slowly. That sounds expensive. Her expression shifted barely. You're doing it again, she said quietly. Making everything about money. There it was. Not denial. Redirection. Later that night, while she showered, I opened her tablet on the kitchen counter. No password. Just confidence. Her email was already open. And sitting at the top of her inbox was a confirmation receipt. Luxury furnishings, delivery completed, Unit 4B. But that wasn't what made my stomach drop. It was the name listed under emergency contact. Not mine, and not Bennett. It was his. I didn't sleep that night. Claire lay beside me breathing evenly. One arm draped across her pillow like nothing in her world was fractured. I stared at the ceiling until 3:17 a.m., replaying the image of that email header over and over. Emergency contact, Daniel Mercer. Not my accountant, a different Daniel. At breakfast, the house smelled like cinnamon waffles. Noah was laughing at something on Lily's tablet. Ordinary sounds. Ordinary light spilling through the blinds. Claire poured coffee and smiled at me like she always did. You look exhausted. I stopped by downtown yesterday, I said calmly. Her hand paused mid-pour. Just a fraction. For work? She asked. No, for Riverside Holdings. Silence. She set the mug down carefully. Ethan, what are you talking about? I saw the apartment. Not accusing, not shouting, just stating. Her face didn't crumble. It didn't even harden. It softened. That scared me more. "You followed me?" she whispered. The word "followed" hit the room like smoke. I was trying to understand where the money was going. Her chair scraped back slowly. "You went through my things. I saw a receipt. You invaded my privacy." There it was, the pivot. "This isn't about privacy," I said quietly. "It's about $40,000 over 3 months." Noah looked up from his plate. Claire lowered her voice immediately, trembling just enough. "Not in front of the kids?" I felt heat rise in my chest. "Then explain it." She took a step back like I'd moved toward her. "Do you hear yourself right now?" she asked, barely above a whisper. "You're tracking me, monitoring me, interrogating me, interrogating." The same word from the dinner party. She picked up her phone. "If this is how it's going to be," she said softly, "I need to protect myself. Protect. From me." And suddenly, I wasn't confronting a lie. I was standing inside a story where I was the villain. She didn't call the police. She didn't have to. By noon, 3 people had texted me. "Are you okay? Maybe give Claire some space. Heard things got intense this morning." Intense. I had spoken in a measured tone. I hadn't touched her. I hadn't raised my voice, but the story was already circulating. When I got home that evening, the house felt different. Not hostile. Staged. Lily was unusually quiet. Noah avoided eye contact. "Daddy," Noah said carefully, like he was reading from a cue card. "Mom says yelling makes people feel unsafe." I swallowed. "Did I yell this morning?" He hesitated. "You were loud." I hadn't been, but perception is easy to edit. Claire was in the living room, laptop open, posture composed. "We need to be careful about emotional environments around the kids," she said gently. "Emotional environments, not lies, not theft. Environments." That night, Daniel Harper, my accountant, called. "Ethan, Claire reached out earlier. She said you've been erratic about company finances." Erratic. She suggested maybe we restrict your direct transfer access for a while. Daniel continued cautiously. "Just until things stabilize." The room spun. "She what?" She seemed concerned. Concerned. By the next morning, my mother-in-law had left a voicemail about respecting Claire's boundaries. At school pickup, 2 mothers stopped talking when I approached. No one accused me of anything concrete. They didn't need to. The narrative was softer than that. Fragile wife, stressed husband, money obsession. I checked the business portal that night. A new line had appeared under liabilities. Business credit extension, $75,000. Authorized signatory, C. Caldwell. My stomach dropped. That wasn't just an apartment. That was leverage. And suddenly I understood. This wasn't about leaving me. It was about positioning me. For 3 days, I said nothing. No accusations. No late-night interrogations. No visible panic. If Claire was building a narrative, I needed to step out of it. I called Daniel Harper and asked to meet in person, not at the office. We met at a small coffee shop near the river. The kind with exposed brick and too much echo. Rain tapped softly against the windows. "I need you to look at everything," I told him. "Not as my friend. As a forensic accountant." He studied me for a long moment. "Claire's worried about you." "I know," I said evenly. "That's part of the problem." I handed him printed statements, highlighted transfers, dates circled, the LLC registration, the lease information tied to Unit 4B, the new credit extension. Daniel's expression changed slowly. Not dramatic, just incremental. Professional curiosity replacing casual doubt. She used company liquidity to secure a personal lease, he murmured, layered through a holding entity to avoid direct trace. So I'm not losing my mind. No, he said quietly. You're late to the pattern. Late. That word hurt more than anything Claire had said. Over the next week, I built a timeline. Every transfer, every meeting, every Instagram post about financial mindfulness, screenshots, metadata, receipts, the emergency contact listing Daniel Mercer. I didn't confront her again. Instead, I scheduled a consultation with a business attorney downtown. Gray office, diplomas on the wall, clean, clinical lighting. After reviewing the documents, the attorney leaned back. This qualifies as financial fraud, she said calmly, and potentially embezzlement. The words didn't feel victorious. They felt clarifying. Do I confront her? I asked. She shook her head. No, you prepare. That night, Claire sat across from me at dinner, smiling softly while Lily described a science project. She had no idea the ground beneath her was no longer stable. And for the first time in months, I wasn't reacting. I was waiting. The meeting happened on a Tuesday morning, neutral ground. My attorney's office overlooked the river. Wide windows, pale winter light, everything painfully calm. Claire walked in wearing cream-colored silk and composure. She didn't look nervous. She looked prepared. Her lawyer sat beside her, confident, relaxed. Claire folded her hands neatly. Ethan insisted on making this adversarial. She began softly. I've only ever tried to stabilize things. Stabilize. My attorney didn't respond emotionally. She opened a folder. Riverside Holdings LLC, she said evenly. Established January 14th. Lease signed February 3rd, funded via staggered business transfers. Claire's posture didn't change. Then came the spreadsheet, projected onto the wall. Dates, amounts, memos, cross-referenced IP logins. The room grew quiet. My attorney continued. Additionally, a $75,000 credit extension was authorized under company collateral without co-signature disclosure. Claire's jaw tightened, just slightly. Her lawyer shifted. This was for marketing expansion. For Unit 4B? My attorney asked. Silence. Then, the final page slid across the table. Emergency contact listing Daniel Mercer. Claire blinked. For the first time, something flickered behind her eyes. Not fear. Calculation. This is harassment, she said calmly. He's been tracking me. I finally spoke. I went to the building once, I said. After months of missing funds? Her voice softened. Ethan, you're spiraling. There it was again. The script. But this time, it had documentation. My attorney leaned forward slightly. If pursued criminally, these transactions exceed felony thresholds. The word felony landed heavier than any accusation she'd whispered at dinner parties. Claire inhaled slowly. And then, finally, her composure cracked, not dramatically, just enough. Let's not destroy the children over misunderstandings, she said. Misunderstandings. For months, I've been defending my sanity. Now she was defending her exposure. Settlement discussions began that afternoon. And for the first time, the story stopped bending around me. The settlement was quiet. No dramatic courtroom scenes. No public scandal. Just signatures in a conference room that smelled faintly of toner and stale coffee. Claire agreed to repay a structured portion of the diverted funds. The apartment lease was terminated within 30 days. The credit extension was refinanced solely under her name. In exchange, I chose not to pursue criminal charges. Not because she deserved mercy. Because Lily and Noah deserved stability. The separation was framed publicly as mutual. That was her request. I didn't argue. I no longer needed the room to believe me. Reputation repairs slowly. At school pickup, conversations were cautious at first, then normal again. Daniel issued a formal clarification to vendors about internal accounting restructuring. Business stabilized within 2 quarters. At home, the quiet felt different. Not heavy. Honest. One evening, Lily sat beside me on the porch as the sun lowered behind the trees. "Are you mad at Mom?" she asked softly. I considered the question. "No," I said, "but I won't let anyone rewrite the truth about me." She nodded like she understood more than a 10-year-old should. The hardest part wasn't the money. It wasn't the apartment. It was realizing how easily doubt can be planted when you love someone. I ignored instincts because I believed trust meant silence. It doesn't. Trust without boundaries isn't loyalty. It's surrender. Claire moved downtown eventually. Different building, different circle. I stayed. Not because I won, but because I learned something I'll never unlearn. The calmest person in the room isn't always the villain. Sometimes he's just the last one to see the script. And now I make sure I'm the one holding the pen. Psychological manipulation doesn't begin with screaming. It begins with suggestion, with carefully placed words, with subtle shifts in perception. By the time you realize you're defending yourself, the story may already be circulating without you. I nearly lost my business. I nearly lost my reputation. I almost let someone convince my own children that I was the storm. But dignity isn't loud. It's documented. It's patient. It's precise. If you've ever been made to question your own reality, I want to ask you something. What would you have done in my place? And how long would it have taken you to see the script?